Not every kind of silence means loneliness. Sometimes, it's the sound of finally feeling safe. There's a certain kind of quiet that only exists when you're home. Not the quiet of boredom, but the quiet that feels like safety. It's that moment when you catch the faint hum of the fridge, the gentle tick of a clock somewhere nearby, and it hits you. For once, no one's expecting anything from you. It isn't loneliness. It's calm. Most people don't understand that. They'll look at someone who loves staying home and assume they're antisocial or afraid of the world. But for some people, home isn't a retreat from life. It's the one place where they can actually breathe. Most people never realize that staying home isn't about hiding. It's about returning. Out there, in the endless noise of comparison, pressure, and performance, it's easy to lose sight of who you really are. But within the walls of home, something shifts. You stop performing and start existing again. Maybe that instinct began years ago, in crowded classrooms, noisy buses, or chaotic hallways. Places where you had to speak louder to be noticed, smile wider to seem fine, and move faster just to keep up. For some people, that constant pressure never felt natural. So, they built something gentler, an inner world where silence wasn't scary and stillness wasn't shameful. Over time, that inner world became sacred, a private landscape of safety and softness. That's when home turned into more than a physical space. It became a sanctuary, not from the world, but for the self. Psychologists call it high sensitivity to external stimuli. It means your brain processes life deeply. Every light, sound, and word feels louder, brighter, heavier. For people wired this way, the outside world can feel like a storm. Home is the calm after it. It's not avoidance, it's balance. The nervous system finally whispering, "Here, I can rest." But it goes deeper than overstimulation. It's also about truth. Home is the one place where the mask comes off, where the version of you that knows how to smile on command and say the right things finally dissolves. What's left isn't a performance. It's the raw, unfiltered version of you. The one that doesn't need to impress anyone. The one that simply is. It's strange how a person can be surrounded by others all day and still feel invisible. Yet the moment they return home, sitting quietly by a window with a warm drink, they suddenly feel seen again. That's the quiet magic of solitude. It's not distance. It's intimacy, a closeness with your own soul. Our culture tends to romanticize noise. We celebrate the busy, the loud, the endlessly social. We treat silence like suspicion and stillness like failure. But there's a rare kind of strength in those who know how to be alone without feeling lonely. They've learned that fulfillment doesn't always grow in motion. Sometimes it grows in pause. There's an old saying that goes, "If you don't go within, you go without." For the ones who find peace at home, that inward journey isn't escape, it's alignment. It's how they untangle emotions, recover from overwhelm, and rediscover what feels real. When you're constantly surrounded by people, your identity starts to fracture. You become a different version of yourself for each audience. Polite in one room, loud in another, careful somewhere else. But when you're home, there's no audience left to please. You can finally exhale. Of course, solitude has its edge. Even the most inward souls need connection. Yet here's the paradox. People who spend more time alone often form deeper relationships. They don't chase crowds. They crave depth. They look for the kind of bond where silence feels comfortable and presence feels enough. When researchers study solitude, they discover something fascinating. Those who choose it intentionally tend to be more creative and emotionally intelligent. It's not because they're superior. It's because they listen. They listen to their own thoughts until the noise fades and clarity appears. Think about when your biggest realizations appeared. They rarely happened in crowded rooms or noisy cafes. They came during quiet nights, long showers, or while sitting alone in your room when no one else was around. That's the hidden strength of solitude. Silence gives the mind enough space to speak. Ironically, many people who love staying home also carry quiet guilt about it. They scroll through endless photos of parties and trips and start to believe they're missing out. But what they forget is that social media shows activity, not peace. Everyone's chasing comfort in their own way, some through crowds, others through calm. There's nothing shameful about choosing calm. Humans have always needed sanctuaries. Ancient monks found theirs in caves and mountains. Modern souls find theirs in bedrooms filled with music, soft light, and familiar smells. The setting changes, but the purpose stays the same. Retreat to reset. Science supports this too. When you're home, your body enters what psychologists call a low-threat state. Cortisol levels drop, breathing slows, and your thoughts begin to untangle. That's why tears often come easier in quiet rooms. The moment your guard falls, buried emotions rise. What looks like stillness on the outside is often healing on the inside. And yet, the world doesn't always understand. People will say, you should get out more, or you're wasting your time. But they don't see that staying home doesn't mean doing nothing. Some of the deepest growth happens behind closed doors. Reading, reflecting, journaling, dreaming. Those are quiet revolutions. Invisible, but transformative. For many, home isn't about escaping the world. It's about preparing for it. Within those walls, they rebuild their energy, gather their thoughts, and slowly become ready to step out again. This time, not with restlessness, but with calm. There's a quiet comfort in routine. The way your morning coffee smells the same each day, how light falls across the same corner of the room, the sound of familiar footsteps echoing softly. To some it's monotony, but to those who love staying home, it's emotional order, a rhythm the mind can finally rest inside. Psychologists say the brain thrives on predictability. When your surroundings feel safe and consistent, anxiety eases. Every small ritual, lighting a candle, folding a blanket, opening a window, becomes a message to your nervous system. You're safe now. But in a culture obsessed with movement and visibility, that kind of stillness feels rebellious. We're taught that to matter, we must always be seen, working, traveling, achieving. Yet people who embrace quiet living gently challenge that belief. They prove that meaning doesn't always come from motion. Sometimes, it comes from presence. Those who love their solitude often see beauty. Others overlook the slow drift of sunlight, the rain tracing patterns on glass, the faint hum of life happening quietly around them. They notice the poetry in ordinary things, the kind of beauty that doesn't demand attention, but rewards awareness. This kind of happiness moves at a slower pace. It doesn't need validation or applause. It doesn't even need to be shared. It just is. For some, silence feels empty. For others, it feels like home. Because in that stillness, they hear what's real. Their own heartbeat, their own thoughts, their own truth. And that's what makes solitude sacred. It's not about isolation. It's about being deeply present, not for anyone else, but for yourself. There's a quiet paradox in people who love staying home. They're often mistaken for distant or detached. But the truth is, they feel life more intensely than most. Every sound, every word, every glance leaves an imprint. And when the world becomes too loud, they don't retreat out of fear. They retreat to protect their peace. You can tell a lot about someone by the space they create around themselves. Some fill their homes with light and sound, music playing, plants stretching toward the window. Others prefer soft lighting, the scent of coffee or candles, a familiar blanket draped over a chair. Every home becomes a mirror, a reflection of the soul inside it. Psychologists have found that solitude often nurtures imagination and empathy. When you spend time alone, You start to hear your own thoughts clearly, unfiltered by the noise of others. That's where creativity begins. Not in the crowd, but in the quiet moments when you're fully yourself. Great thinkers and artists have always understood this. They sought solitude, not because they disliked people, but because they needed space to listen to their own minds. Time alone turns thoughts into art, confusion into understanding, silence into wisdom. But solitude isn't always easy. When distractions fade, you're left with yourself, your emotions, your truths, your unfinished thoughts. Many people run from that, but those who stay learn something powerful. Peace isn't the absence of thought, it's the acceptance of it. That's what makes home sacred. It's where we return to ourselves after being too many versions for too long. It's where we remember that we don't need the world's noise to feel alive. We just need stillness, safety, and self-connection. Because in the end, home isn't just a place you live. It's a space within you, a steady rhythm, a soft reminder that you are never lost, just waiting to come back to yourself.